So mark that in your diaries. Also, I'd like to announce, as also another volunteer position, Chairman of the Literary Arts Committee of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. Tom is with me on that committee, and last year we ran a very successful writing contest, and we're going to do it again. So I just want to warn you that that will be announced at some point when we get our flyers printed. So there's two things to look forward to. Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
I think we're ready to go. And so I will say welcome, everybody. Welcome everybody that's here at the Leading Library for our reading tonight. I'm Tom Hogan, the director of the Milwaukie Poetry Series. Thank you all and welcome to those of us that are watching on the live stream. And thank you for hanging in there with us while we've had a little bit of technical difficulties getting the feed up and running. But we're really happy that you're all here. Poetry is so important, and it's important to share it and connect with it. And we know there's lots of other demands on our time. There's lots of other things you could be doing tonight, but you're either here with us at the library here in Milwaukie, or you're watching on the live stream. And so thank you very much for doing that. One thing I want to say is this would be a time to remind you to silence your telephonic devices, if you would do that, because we don't want to have them going off while Sherri is reading. I want to make some thanks. Some thanks I've already made, and I want to mention those people. I have not mentioned the City of Milwaukie yet. So the City of Milwaukie has supported us from the beginning. So we are very grateful to the City of Milwaukie. I already did mention the Leading Library of Milwaukie, the Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee, and Willamette Falls Media, who Willamette Falls Media is making this all happen tonight. That's going out on the live stream. So can we give all those people a hand? Thank you so much. I want to say something about a couple of other events that are coming up. The Milwaukie Poetry Series is sponsoring a William Stafford birthday celebration, and that is going to be the second Saturday in January, which is January 13th. It's going to be here from 2 to 4, and the format is we will have some featured readers who will read some of Bill Stafford's poetry and some of their own. Then we'll have an open mic. So people want to come and honor Bill Stafford and read some of his poems here, January 13th. There's going to be a flyer out about that. So let me introduce Sherri, our poet tonight. I've been very excited about this. I got an opportunity to see a book launch that Sherri did, which I thought was terrific. So she is an artist and poet living in Portland, Oregon. She won the Lois Cranston Memorial Award and first place, Poet's Choice, in the Oregon Poetry Association contest. Her poems have been published in local and national magazines and journals such as Calyx, Prairie Schooner, Poet Lore, Jewish Literary Journal, Clackamas Literary Review, and the Driftwood Press. Her first full-length book of poems, Stealing Flowers from the Neighbors, was published in 2021. She recently published A Joy to See, 2023, which is an anthology of poetry from 20 prominent Oregon poets. Sherri and the other poets read her book at Powell's Bookstore in downtown Portland and Salem. She is also was the creator of Head for the Hills, a monthly poetry series and open mic at the Hillsdale Library and on Zoom. Ordinarily, from upstate New York, she escaped. She escaped the harsh winters and is now soaking in the Oregon rain. So I've been looking forward to this. As I said, would you join me in welcoming our poet for the evening, Sherri Levine. Sherri.
Well, good evening, everybody. How's that? Is that better? Okay. So I have a lot of thanks to people here tonight. So First, I want to thank Tom for inviting me. It is such an honor being here. I've watched many of my favorite poets at the Pond House and the library, so it's such an honor. Thank you, Letting Library. Thank you, Josh, for filming me, and you did such a wonderful job at Powell's. Thank you for Rebecca for filming me. So I want to thank, so my dad in Scottsdale, Arizona is watching, and Joan is watching right now, and thank you so much for watching me tonight. It means a lot. And my Aunt Harriet in Sarasota, Florida. And many people said they couldn't come tonight, but so they'll be watching. So thank you for coming. So tonight I will start out with a quote, read 5 poems, and project my new book, I Remember Not Sleeping, onto the screen, read you some more poems, and then project A Joy to See. I want to thank Sam Rose Preminger for being my editor and my incredible friend. So thank you so much for coming. So I'll start out with a quote. As you can see, I've been holding on to this. It's been on my wall forever. So I want to read this to you. It's by Julian Barnes from Nothing to Be Frightened of. Do we create art in order to defeat or at least defy death, to transcend it, to put it in its place? You may take my body, you may take all the squidgy stuff inside my skull where lurks whatever lucidity and imagination I possess, but you cannot take away what I have done with them. Tastes change, truth becomes cliche, whole art forms disappear. Even the greatest art triumphs over death and invisibility temporarily. We're all really scratching on the wall of a condemned cell. We do it to say, I was here too. Sorry for the ugly water bottle. And yes, I'm really proud to be on the OPA board, and I know we're going to do some great things. I also want to thank Bob Lagatuda, my partner, who has been with me for a long time, and it's wonderful. Okay, so it's been wonderful to be published in journals, and that's been wonderful, but I've been published in a bus. So there's a contest, and I won the contest. There are 7 lines of a poem inside buses. So in Vancouver, if you're in Vancouver and you take the bus, you'll see this poem. And you can't see it with Bob, but Bob's really tall. If he stands up and I'm next to him, I come up to his stomach. So, so this is about that. Bending down. I never thought I'd fall in love with a tree, strong, wide boughs to blossom. Towering 100 feet, you bend down to kiss my lips, rub my back, and wish me a good day. Thanks, Bob. Well, because of time, I think I'm going to speed things up a little bit. So it is the 6th night of Hanukkah, so if anybody here celebrates Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. But I really find my God in nature. And whenever I'm listening to the sound of birds or looking at squirrels jumping around, it gives me solace. So I'm going to read you a couple poems about that. No matter. A bird may curve in the sky, a second, third. They follow, all knowing what to do, where to go at dusk, when light darkens in the fall, brightens in the spring, no matter which direction they choose. Ducks, geese, crows, I stand under them in my yard, watching, pointing, counting. I am alone and lonely. If one dies, they mourn and move on like squawking angels. And I'm not that alone because I have my friends here. Just want to mention that. So the next poem is about another nature item, antennas. If everything is connected, I don't want to feel pain. The barb of a hooked fish, a rolled up slug, poke from a paw, stroke on a 10-year-old breast. If everything is connected, I want a hug from my mother in my dreams, to visit my friends who only exist at night when it's dark, when the slugs come into the kitchen for warmth and wet. If everything is connected, I want to be part of your nerves and tissues, the eyes at the top of your antenna to help me see out. I've lost a good number of friends over the years, and one of my friends was very important to me. Dear Scott, in Lycra lavender gym shorts, your sister came to my screen door, handed me your ashes in a Ziploc bag, the kind you have to pinch to close, not the newer kind with the tab you can move back and forth. After she left, I was afraid to open the bag, surprised how light the bag was. To me, you were a mountain. I know, Scott, you would make fun of all of this. If I concentrate, squeeze my eyes, I can hear you laugh right now. Scott, I did open the bag. Cement pieces somebody could make a sidewalk out of. Trembling, I sifted my fingers through your soft white sand. Scott, I'm sick of my friends dying. I remember you, all tubes in your hospital room. I had to wear a hazmat suit to say goodbye. What am I supposed to do with you now? And my other friend had an extreme stroke, and this is for him, inflamed. I remember when you could eat. You showed me how to roast red pepper right on the burner on our gas stove. Smoldering flames engulfed it, crackling and popping, its skin turned to char. You lifted it with a fork, popped it into a paper bag, shook the pepper until the char flaked off. How sweet it tasted when you laid a slice on my tongue. Now you lie limp and still, staring blankly out of the window. A feeding tube pokes out of your stomach. Sometimes I wish I could shake you hard until you speak. I show you communication cards. You point to the boxes. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I stroke your hair, cup your face. You struggle to resist, push me away with your one good fist. So I think it's so hard. We all have lost people in our lives. And how do we deal with it? Well, I'm going to deal with it with some humor. But before I get to my humor, I'm going to show you the book that I published in 2021. It's called Stealing Flowers from the Neighbors. It's a painting. My mother was a tremendous artist. And so I think to kind of shake things up here and add a little humor to the reading, I'm going to read you my one-hit wonder. It seems like this poem is like, no matter where I go, what I do, people really like it. So, grammar lessons. When my students ask me how to use the future tense, I tell them we use will for a promise or a threat. I will always love you, for example. And to make a plan, we use the present continuous. I am divorcing him. When they ask about the simple past, he loved me a long time ago. It's not that simple, I tell them. There's certainly nothing perfect about the present perfect. I have loved you since the day I met you. I asked them, does that mean he stopped loving me? But loving is a non-continuous verb. Loving, I tell them, is incorrect. And for the modals, though confused, I know I still have their interest. I may, I might, I should, I could keep going, but I won't. Instead, I tell them, love is full of tenses. See, it's my one-hit wonder. Anyway, I want to move on because of the time, and I've never read this long, and so I'm trying to time it right. Yeah, okay. So, like I said, I wrote this in 2021. I'm not going to read a lot of poems from it. The last part is about my mother because she was dying. But I want to tell you some cool things about this book. So this book, I sent it to Alzheimer's authors, and Alzheimer's authors is a big organization. And before I want to tell you about that, sometimes I get so excited about and passionate about things. Friends who know me know this. And so I wrote to Seth Rogen. Does anybody know him, the comedian? And I said, I want to read this at your conference, your fundraising conference. And he has got a fundraising conference because Seth Rogen's wife's mother died of early onset dementia. And so I wrote him, like crazy, right? And he's like, okay. They're like, okay, you can read your book at my conference. And so next to me, it was a Zoom conference, and next to me was like Howie Mandel and all these other comedians. And I had a pretty big audience, so that was fun. But anyway, it's also been chosen as a book club. I can't get my words out. As a book club. So nationally, a lot of people are going to read this book in their book club. So this book's done pretty well, and I'm really proud of it. I'm not going to read so much from it tonight because I'm really excited to share with you my new book, and which is my new project. This is called I Remember Not Sleeping. So this is an illustrated book about me, and let's see how to say this. I have bipolar disorder. I have had this all my life, and I have kept it a secret, really. A lot of people don't know that I have this illness, and my passion for poetry came while I was living in a psychiatric hospital for a year. And I wrote every day, and the hospital put me on a bus and sent me to Skidmore College, which is a college in upstate New York. And it was my only chance to get out. And I wrote this book about a year ago when I became ill because the lithium that I'd been taking for 35 years damaged my kidneys to the point where they were only working 15%. So a year ago, I became ill, and I still have this illness. But I thought, I want to write a book for other people who are suffering from this illness. And I read somewhere that in the MFA program at Iowa, that half the poets have bipolar disorder. And I don't know if that's true, but a lot of people who are poets and writers suffer from illness. And I want to break the stigma and talk about this. So this was my project, and then I'm going to fast forward. In 1998, I went to Prague in the Czech Republic on a whim, got really ill, and ended up in a Czech mental hospital. They didn't speak English in this hospital. And so my idea is to show you cinematically what the hospital looked like. And this book was just picked up by Fernwood Press, and it will be published within the year. So I'm really excited. So Sam, I think we're ready. I want you to read this by yourself. Robert Lowell was my hero. He suffered from, it was called manic depression, and he was very, very ill, but won the Pulitzer Prize. And so while I was living in the hospital, I'm like, Robert Lowell, Robert Lowell. And so I read this, it's a 300-page biography about him, and I encourage you to read it. And he did take lithium before the 10 years of his life, and he was able to write better on lithium. A lot of people that we know, poets like Sylvia Plath and Theodore Rothke, and a lot of poets, they just didn't get treatment. And because they didn't get treatment, we lost them. So I remember not sleeping. I remember lying on a squeaky cot in a room full of Czech women, listening to them breathe like lung machines. I remember steam hissing from radiators, heels clicking down halls. I remember on the psychiatric ward thinking that the patients were doctors who were there to save me because I was dying. A flashlight shone in my eyes every 2 hours during the night. A needle poked my arm. Someone always watched me in the shower with a flashlight. I'll let you read this. I remember waking up at night to use the bathroom and seeing Czech nurses watching porn on TV. I remember having sex with men, multiple men and women, but I don't remember feeling anything except sore. I was never tired and never hungry. I got a day pass from the hospital and snuck into a man's car. We smoked unfiltered Camels and listened to Metallica. I hated heavy metal, but it felt good to be held. I'll let you read this. I remember the doctor asking me if I had been breastfed and what it meant to throw stones in glass houses. I was afraid if I didn't get the answers right, something bad would happen to me. One doctor said sleep deprivation causes mania. My roommate swallowed a crushed light bulb. I remember the bitter taste of pills I hid under my tongue. I remember how good it was to come home, to stretch my legs across my bed, wrap myself in clean cotton sheets, and listen to the rain. Snow fell last night in Prague before I got on a plane to the States. I wasn't sure I would come back, but I wasn't thinking about that. I'd have to be up for 20 hours or more to get home. So I want to read you about the artist. Moises Camacho was born in Mexico City and has lived in California since 2000. His traditional training allows him to create illustrations and classic media, watercolor, acrylic, and oil. Since 2009, he directs the Orange County Fine Arts Studio, where he creates large format visual projects and murals in the city of Santa Ana, where there are more than 17 public projects, and he could be found at. So that's my question. Thank you. When I talk about this project, so Sam actually laid out the whole book for me, and I met the artist online, and we discussed, and he interpreted it, and it was really difficult, but I did this for other people who are struggling, and I am a member of the NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mentally Ill, and I go into schools and other places and talk about my story to help other people. And I worry about kids with suicide. It's a really big deal. And I think once we talk about things, it won't be such a stigma. When I was growing up, it was a stigma. I was a teacher. I taught immigrants and refugees for 28 years. And I couldn't tell my supervisors that I had bipolar disorder. And I became sick, and I lost work, I lost my marriage, I lost many things. But had I been able to tell my supervisor, look, I'm not able to, come in, have depression, and that wouldn't be acceptable. But now, the more we talk about it, the more changes we can make. And I've made a proposal to go to Denver, Colorado to present this at the conference, and I'm hoping to take it on the road, so to speak, and present this. So this is a very important project to me, and thank you, Sam, for helping me. Thank you, Patty Palmer-Baker, for being a big part of this. Thank you, Ann Farley. Thank you, Deborah. And Francis, I have really amazing, and Emmett, and Bob. And as I have a community of friends helping me, because I'm not alone, we're not alone. Okay, time is it? Okay, so I'm gonna move on to my next project, which is, I don't know, okay, here it is, A Joy to See. So shall we show it? I don't think I'm gonna read any poems, but this is my mother, and this is the book that Dale Champlin, I don't know if you know her, but she published this book. Maybe we could just go through it, Sam, to show her art and the poets. And the poets are amazing, as you can see. Francis is in here, Anne is in here, Emmett is in here, Patty is in here. Emmett's. And Lois, she's watching. Why don't we stop for now? We'll stop for now. So the book's over there for sale if you want. So I'll tell you how this got going. We read this at Powell's in June, all the poets. So the book was, I asked 27 poets to write an ekphrastic poem. Ekphrastic, does everybody know what an ekphrastic poem is? Okay, it's a response to art. So it could be sculpture, it could be a painting. And I asked these poets, and they all said yes. And so they wrote these beautiful poems. So the book was published. And I get, I told you, I get really passionate, I get worked up about things. And I walked into Powell's holding this book, and I said, I want to talk to the bookseller. Actually, I kind of knew him, Kevin Samsel. Does anybody know him at Powell's? Yeah, he's a nice guy. Anyway, I said, I want to have a reading here. And he's like, okay. And I said, and I showed him the poets on the back. And he said, well, if you could, flip through it, he said, if you could bring them here, we'll have a reading. And so, and that's what we did. We had a beautiful reading on June 25th. How many people were there? Can you raise your hand? It's beautiful. So that was my next book. I'm not going to read from it, although I feel a little thrown off because of time. So I'm going to, and I brought one of the cards that my mom made. She was a tremendous painter. How much more time do I have?
We're okay.
Like 5 minutes? Or?
5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Okay, I'll just do 5, and then we'll do questions. And so like Emmett, for example, I sent him a card, and he wrote a beautiful poem. Okay, so now I'm a little thrown off what I should do now. So I think what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about grief and my mother. So after my mother died, I was pretty much a mess. And but I want to talk about Alzheimer's. And she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I think I told you that, Bob. And so when somebody has Alzheimer's, they can get really agitated. And that's what happened to my mother. I'm going to read you this poem, Rummaging. This is in Stealing Flowers. Off the bus, my mother struts in front of me in a rush to the bank. She waves her finger at the teller, counting bills behind the window. "Where's the chubby one?" she says. I stand behind her and tug her arm. "Stop it," she says. She rummages through her black leather fanny pack for her driver's license. I know she won't find it. "They know me here," she yells. Behind the window, the manager nods to me. He says to her, "It's okay, Mrs. Levine." I turn around and face a security guard, the taser on his belt. He doesn't flinch. Has she done this before? I feel sweat under my down jacket and winter hat. Everything is red and hot, like the inside of a mouth screaming. It's really hard. Okay, I have 2 more poems, and we're going to do the Stealing Flowers from the, okay. So after my mom passed away, I swam a lot, I did a lot of swimming, and I entered this class called Water Tai Chi. Have you heard of this at all? No, yeah, it wasn't even Tai Chi, water, it was called something else. What was it, Anne? Like weird class. You're like, what is this? I don't even know. Okay, I'll read you this. Water Tai Chi with Mom. In the warm therapy pool, I'm doing Tai Chi with 5 white-haired women. The teacher wearing red cat-eye glasses drawls, breathe, nurture, flow. Her accent thick as the pungent smell of chlorine misting throughout the windowless room. Y'all are doing a good job, she says, smiling with bright white teeth. It feels good to push from the wall and tread, allowing the water to hold me like giant hands with wings. My mother appears to my right in a bathing suit I bought for her 80th birthday. The day we swam in the same lane. Look, I'm doing the side stroke, she laughed. It was the first time we forgot she had lost her memory. The agitation had abated like a calm sea after a storm. It's the teacher's accent that's making me laugh inside. I want my mother to crack up too. She's frowning, turning to me, and mouths, I'm trying to concentrate. I feel the tears sting, drops salt water plop into the pool. Come to the center. I can't do accents, sorry. Come to the center, she softly commands, like hippos in shallow water. We use our hefty legs to propel ourselves forward, bouncing along the bottom, kicking our legs and gliding around like bobbing beach balls. I don't look for my mother. I know she is gone. Sometimes pain comes in convulsions, then subsides, and I float on. So I'm going to end there. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do that. Thank you. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'll do that at the end. That sounds
Yeah,
good.
let's have it.
Okay.
Okay. So, okay, Bev is here, and great. So we're in the question and answers. So any questions that you have for Sherri? And Bev has the mic. She's going to bring it to you. And one thing I wondered is, how did you get discharged? How did they stay in the Czech hospital? How did that work out, and how did you get discharged and back to the States?
I could just speak, right? You can hear me, right?
Well, why don't you come to the mic? He gets it on the recording.
Well, they took my passport from me when I entered the hospital, which is really terrifying. But then they realized I couldn't pay. So at first they said I'm going to be there for living for a long time, but then, yeah, they realized I couldn't pay, and so they told me to go. Yes, Patty.
Well, how long were you there?
I was there for,
I'm trying to get this on tape. We heard her, she said, how long were you there?
I was there for 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks.
How long did it seem?
Seemed like forever. It was very scary. It was in like an old cathedral, and nobody spoke English except for one patient. And yeah, it was terrifying, but it was interesting because they treated me so well. You know, here in this country, and I've been in hospitals in this country, they make you wear a uniform, they give you shots, they, you know, I've been put in isolation rooms, they give you a straitjacket. There, they just let us be. They just wanted me to eat. I had lost a lot of weight. They wanted to feed me, and they hugged me. When I was in hospitals here in this country, I couldn't touch anybody for a year because they were thought that my libido was really high. They wouldn't let me touch anybody, and nobody could touch me for a year. So in a way, the hospital in Prague is more humane.
Well, I think it's a really important and brave and wonderful thing that you're doing, sharing all this, Sherri. And you mentioned, I think the illustrations make it accessible to people who might not necessarily think they want to read poetry. So I think that's a really great idea that you went and did that. And you said you met Moises online, but I'm kind of wondering about that process and how the two of you, how you really found him. You talked to me about that a little bit, and then how that developed.
Well, so for somebody who has bipolar disorder, I get this like surge of energy, and I come up with these great ideas, like going into Powell's and saying, I want a reading here, you know. I mean, how many people actually do that? But anyway, my stepmother thinks it's chutzpah. And does everybody know what chutzpah means? She's like, I just think you have chutzpah. So, you know, with Moises, and I hope you're watching Moises, but I just met him online. I liked his art, and I got in touch with him. And he's a muralist, so this is really out of his realm. But he said that he was really moved by the poem. And the poem was already written in Stealing Flowers. So I already wrote this poem, but I wanted it to be cinematic. Thanks for your question.
Sherri, tonight you were bold, brave, and beautiful. This was a beautiful, beautiful reading. I'd like to ask you, what poet has influenced you, given your journey and what you've experienced of poets? Who has influenced you?
Well, you know, I have to say Sylvia Plath was very important because she was confessional. But the fact that she killed herself, and it's sad because she didn't have treatment, but I would say Robert Lowell, because he continued to write, even though he was really depressed and then really manic, he still wrote. And he won the Pulitzer Prize, so he was my hero, and he's always been my hero. And if you haven't read him, I really suggest you read Life Studies, because that was his book that he came out that was confessional. I think that was in the 50s. So thanks for your question. Okay, yes, Patty.
In this journey, was it, did you feel scared ever that you were doing this, or like how would people receive it, or did you worry about
Well, I think you know that because we talked about it. Yeah, tonight I wasn't sure who's going to watch, or, people are going to read this and they don't know this about me. And yeah, I was scared, but I just feel like, enough is enough. I mean, after my mom died, I just felt like I just want to be honest. We've talked about this. Life is short, and people suffer from many different things. Let's talk about these things. Thank you.
So Sherri, if there's one thing that you would say to anybody either here tonight or listening who might have similar issues as you, what would you want them to know?
I would say there's no shame. Well, first I would say don't romanticize mania, by the way. Don't romanticize this illness, but I would say there's no shame. It's not your fault. It's a disease, like an illness. And as long as you get treatment, you'll be okay. So, and, I think resiliency is very important. I mean, I made the decision to get better, really try and get treatment. And it's been really hard. I mean, this illness is hard, but I believe in, keep trying. And I have some really wonderful friends. And Eric's my student, by the way. And thank you for coming, Eric.
I wanted to ask you too, who are you reading?
Well, here's the problem is that, to be honest, because I have this illness, I'm not able to read really well, so I can listen, and I listen on tape, and I listen to older poets, and I listen to everybody, but I can't concentrate enough to read right now, but I listen. And I think poetry is meant to be spoken, listened to, so. I listen to a lot of people, a lot, anthologies, and it's like, yeah, I listen to Anne. I listen to Deborah, yeah, I listen to Patty. I mean, and Emmett, I listen to Emmett. I go to readings and I listen. And I think that's the most important thing, if you could listen. And Francis, I listen to Francis.
Thank you. So Sherri, it's been wonderful to hear you talk about your projects. And I really enjoyed talking to you about poetry some. And I'm wondering what projects do you see happening for you yourself as you move on?
Well, I'm really fascinated, with mixing art with poetry. I just think that we're visual people and we need to see things to bring it to life. So I think my next project will be with an artist. I mean, my art's not good enough for me to do myself, but some mixing or something like that, or actually film would be great. But I think that we need, don't you think it helps to see? Yes. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
I think it makes your poetry more alive, even just from reading it, because Sometimes when you just read it, to a group, you don't really understand all the words. But when you see it on there while you're speaking, it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Is there one final question?
Sherri, thanks for your courage and showing all this. I feel very blessed to be here. I was just wondering, who paid for your plane ticket back from Prague? And did anybody greet you when you landed in the States?
I had some, well, that's a long story, but to make it short, I had friends in Prague and I had a credit card. I said, take this credit card and buy me a ticket. And it was a long flight. I was really psychotic. I told everybody I was dying and they should let me off the plane quick. And then when I got there, I was on the wheelchair and then I saw my sister and I jumped out of the wheelchair and I'm like, here I am. And everybody thought I was dying on the plane, so. Yeah, that's a really long story. Thank you, Francis.
Well, Sherri's going to end with stealing flowers from the neighbors.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Stealing flowers from the neighbors. No dark sunglasses, no hood over my head, no scissors, shopping bag slung over my shoulder. I slide behind bushes, pricked by brambles, yank and snap, rip and tear. No worry or rush or hush from the birds. Squirrels, too busy collecting nuts, don't stop on the lawn to judge. Dandelion seeds fill the air like dust. A silent sneeze, a cough caught in my throat. I crawl under towering weeds and hedges, wedge myself between rocks and prickly thorns. I do not feel the scraping of my knees or the bee sting, burn of the sun on my cheeks, heat on my hatless head. Stealing flowers from the neighbors, I could only think of you in your hospice bed, your weary head waiting for me to appear. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
This was a very brave reading, Sherri. So, can we give her another hand? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I want to tell people, thank you for being here. Thank you for those of you that are on the live stream. John Daniel is going to be here in January, so he is our poet. And we want to say, this is December, we want to say Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We have some light refreshments back here, so please hang around and enjoy some of the light refreshments and pick up a copy of the broadside if you haven't, and Sherri's books are back here. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Good night. Merry Christmas.